My name is Alvin, A-L-V-I-N, Law, L-A-W, and I am a professional speaker. I have been doing this for 40 years. I'm actually a certified speaking professional, which is a designation that is owned by less than 10% of professional speakers worldwide, and I'm in the Canadian Professional Speakers Hall of Fame. So I've had quite a successful life. Oh, and by the way, I'm also in the Canadian Disability Hall of Fame. So do you know anybody that's in 2 Hall of Fames? And if you look over my left shoulder, if you're looking at the screen on my trophy case back there, that's actually a real American Emmy. So am I world famous? Well, I am today because I'm speaking to you all the way over in your country, a place that I so desperately would love to come visit someday. And I'm going to talk to you today about something that you might have heard a little bit about in your research. But as you can tell from looking at the screen, and I'm going to back up a little bit, this is what I look like when I stand up. So as you may have heard and read, I have no arms. This is my body. This is what I look like. I was born this way. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. But I want to talk a little bit today about one of my favorite memories. I'm a storyteller, folks, and I want to tell some stories with you today. I'm old, too. So way back in 1978, that's a long time ago, isn't it? I graduated from high school. I went to college here in Calgary, where I live. It's an 800-mile drive from the hometown that I grew up in called Yorkton, Saskatchewan, or 1,100 kilometers to Calgary. And I drove there all by myself in a regular car to start my college life. Are you trying to picture that? You're thinking, well, you have a special car. No, I steer with my right foot on the wheel, my left foot on the gas, and all I have to have is automatic transmission. And in 1978, and I hope you don't mind me being really honest with you today, in 1978, I did not have specialized clothing like I have today. So I actually even needed help going to the washroom and dressing myself. I said that slowly, intentionally. It's true. I could go to the bathroom or the washroom, but I couldn't do the button or the zipper or the hooks on my pants. Hey, do you want to try something later? After this call, okay, try going to the washroom and don't use your hands. I dare you. If you're thinking that would be impossible, exactly. That's what I'm going to talk today about. Is actually what impossible really actually is. But I remember when I went to college, I drove there. I was so excited. I got to town. It's a beautiful city. We're on the edge of the Rocky Mountains in Canada. And when you pull into the city of Calgary, you get to the edge of the city. And I remember stopping at a red light, and there was a really good song on the radio. So like you might do if you're driving, or if you're even sitting at your desk and you find a good tune, you like to tap along to the beat. I was tapping along to the beat on the top of the steering wheel. Can you picture it? I was so excited. I was 18 years old. I left home. Yay! And I was starting college. And then I could feel these stares. I could feel something. Somebody was looking at me. So I turned this way, and next to me was a little tiny car, like one of the ones you have in your country, very tiny. And it looked funny because the whole car was sort of leaning over to the right, kind of looking at, oh, and then I realized there was 4 guys in this car, and they were smushed against the passenger side window, staring at me while I'm tapping my foot, looking at them. It was a magical moment because I thought to myself, why do people look at me that way? And then it occurred to me, I was tapping my foot on the steering wheel. They didn't know I had no arms. So I had 2 choices. I could be offended and give them some kind of ugly stare, or I chose the best attitude and answer. I waved, the light turned green, and I drove away. I love that story because it's a great memory for me. Because when I was 18 years old, I would never in a million years have pictured where my life has taken me. I wasn't even supposed to go to school. Honest. In 1966, handicapped or disabled or children with special needs did not go to public schools in Canada. But my parents were amazing. I want to talk about the most special people in my life very quickly. You see, I'm what they call a thalidomide baby. That's a big English word, thalidomide. It was a medication that was supposed to be for anti-nausea for pregnant women. They get what's called morning sickness. And I got to tell you, I used to feel sorry for myself when I was your age. I did. Why me? Why did I have to be the one born without arms? Why do all these things happen to me? Why do people stare at me? Why do people laugh at me? Why do people make fun of me? I didn't like it at all. But my parents always reminded me, most people have never, ever seen someone like you. Now, in 2021, we have the internet. You can see videos of people like me. Maybe you've seen my videos. But in the 60s and 70s, we did not have that. So I had a choice. I could either hate myself, hide in a corner, never leave the house, or I could try and fit in. But the way that I did that was in a somewhat unique fashion. I also need you to hear something very, very important. Not only did my life change because I was born without arms, but at 5 days of age, I was also homeless. It's a true story. My birth family gave me up. They weren't terrible people, but they left me in the hospital because also in 1960, my future was to be living in an institution and never see the light of public or the day. That's a reality. But I found a home, kind of like a stray animal, a dog or a cat or one that's in a shelter gets a home because somebody comes and takes that poor pet home. A couple came along and took me home. And even more amazingly, they were in their mid-50s. Hilda and Jack Law were their names. They were 55 and 53, and they took me home not having any idea what was going to happen. Let me go back on my stool here for just a second and show you something. Because you see, I did not remember learning to use my feet. In fact, wait, let me show you something. This is fun. This is fun. I hope you don't mind. This is how I kind of think. My brain goes really fast. I don't have attention deficit, but I definitely think of things. And we don't have a lot of time together today, okay? Look, this is a picture of me when I was really young. Okay, that's me as a baby in my home in Canada. Do you think that my parents imagined that this would happen to me today at 60 years old, to be married, to be happy, to be successful? No. How could anyone predict that looking at this? But what my mom did more than anything was try to help me become as normal as humanly possible. Favorite story, real quick. My mom's favorite story. I couldn't hold my baby bottle as an infant. So mom would hold it for me, obviously. One day she decided to try something. She put me in my crib and put my bottle on a pillow and laid me on my side next to it and plugged it in my mouth, thinking I could drink. That didn't work, because all I did when I laid on my side was roll over, because I'm really good at rolling over. Hey, did you play that game in Italy, rolling down hills? I was awesome at that game. But my mom also taught me to never give up. So she put the bottle back on the pillow, and I rolled over, and the bottle back on the pillow, and I rolled over, and the bottle back on the pillow. I kept doing this for like a week, until one day, and my mom comes in the room, and I'm sitting up in the corner, and I have the bottle between my feet, and I'm sucking away, having a great time. So you can imagine, even mom was curious, right? She took me out of my crib. She put me on the floor. She stuck a bunch of toys in front of me, waited to see what I would do. She said I grabbed the toy with my toes, and I started to play. Now, is this a toy? No, actually, it's a hairbrush. Look, I used to have hair. Look, we're going to have a few minutes at the end for questions. But the most common questions that I get are how do you questions. How do you wash your face? How do you brush your teeth? How do you shave? How do you shower? How do you dry off? I roll around on the ground on a towel like a dog. That's how I dry off. I will admit it. some of the things that I've had to learn to do did not happen easily. Can you imagine? You want to try something else? Could you do this with your foot? No, probably not. So what is my point? My point is 2021 is the year that we are going to get better. I know that's hard to believe, but we must believe it in our hearts that we can make the impossible possible. My mom turned these into my hands, and my so-called disability or handicap disappeared. In fact, I believe so much in my hands down here that I tried things that seemed crazy. One day I even tried playing the piano. You've heard this, right? It's a little song called Chopsticks. Now, if you're over there clapping right now, that's very kind, because it wasn't very good. But that is a very important detail. One of the keys that I believe can make the world a better place to live is when we can respect others for who they are. In fact, we have a lot of issues about this, and I could talk to you for a long time about the idea. For example, one of the expressions over here in Canada, I don't know if you have it over where you are, is the new normal with COVID, right? The new normal. Okay, look, I don't care who wrote that, but I don't want to insult them. I just think it's dumb. The new normal, as opposed to what? You realize that I am completely normal. So when I played the piano for the first time, that was my normal. And I did it with my feet. And my mom got so excited, she tried to get me lessons. And the piano teacher in town, she wasn't mean, but she looked at my foot and she said, "You'll never play the piano. Your toes are too short." They are. Look, imagine how short they were when I was 10. That's what I've had to deal with in my life. But one of the greatest things that could ever possibly happen happened to me when I was 11 years old. I was very fortunate to grow up in a small town in Canada where everybody kind of knew each other. And all my friends were getting in band. I didn't know what I was going to play because I obviously couldn't play the piano. Can you believe it? A band director did something that seemed impossible. He mounted a trombone, you know, the one that has the slide, on the side of the chair with metal rods and clamps they made in the metal shop at the high school. And I played it with my foot like this. I actually got to be in band. That's incredible. In fact, I got to be so good in band that I ended up being one of the best trombone players in Canada. Honest. I actually was a lead chair trombonist in Canada's national all-star high school jazz band. I was one of the best, playing with my foot. How is that possible? Well, I'm going to tell you. I want you to remember an expression. You can apply it to your life, especially when you're facing challenges and obstacles and thinking to yourself, I just want to give up. I hear you. You have no idea how many times I wanted to give up. But in my home, my parents had a saying. I got really, really tired of it. The saying was, "There's no such word as can't." They'd say it all the time. There's no such word as can't. You know, sometimes people want to be, you know, kind of sassy or smart. They go, "Yeah, there's lots of things that you can't do." Okay, that's not the point. The point is, at the end of the day, let me just turn the snare back on because it kind of makes a noise when it's off. I have to put this on. One of the greatest things that I actually learned to do with my feet happened because I was in band. I hung out with musicians, and musicians have a saying. It's not what you look like, it's can you play? So not only did I learn to play the trombone, but I even learned to play the drums. I only have one here right now. This is how I did it. All right, that you can can clap for. I just want to mention one more thing before we move to questions and answers.
Absolutely.
What am I doing this for today? To show off, to brag, to boast, to say, look at me, aren't I amazing? Yes, but not because of my ego. I was asked by Mr. Krause to speak with you today all the way from Canada because I want you to know that we are all in this together, every place in the world. Do you know what I've always believed? We have so much in common. It's called being human. And by the way, one last thought. I didn't really like the idea of Zoom calls at first because I'm a live speaker. I like being in front of an audience, right? But because of Zoom, I can chat with you in your country, all the way from my country. So you see, if we look at this as an idea that I presented to you today, that out of every bad thing can come a good thing, then we can start to understand and realize we will get through this. It may not be easy, just like going to the bathroom without using your hands, but it is possible because there's no such word as can't.
I love that mantra. And I mean, the first time I heard you say there's no such thing as can't, I don't know, it stuck with me. It echoed with me. So students, feel free to message your questions for Alvin here. We already got a few of them, but thank you so much for speaking to all of us today. And
pleasure.
We cannot thank you enough for your kindness and a true testament to the human spirit of what you can overcome. I mean, you are a huge inspiration to us all. I'll go ahead and I'll unmute. We have Jade, who is our first question. And Jade, you go ahead and unmute and ask.
All right. Well, hi. I
Hello.
have a question for you. So my question is, if you have still bullying, how you change the perspective? How you change that? How you realize that you are different, but in a good way?
Well, that's an excellent question, Jade, and thank you for asking it. And it was something that didn't happen overnight, but I can tell you it's a simple answer. You become who you spend time with. Is that correct? You become who you spend time with. So many young people are so insecure, they'll sometimes make friends with people that aren't good people. And they're out there. Let's just be honest. Sometimes we get with the wrong crowd. But even more importantly, sometimes we get with a crowd that doesn't want to be better, that doesn't want to improve, a crowd that wants to be lazy and get in trouble and hang out. And I'm not trying to be preachy about this, but can you imagine my friends? My friends accept me exactly the way I am. Can you imagine my wife? Look, I want to show you one more picture here before we wrap this up. And I've got my book, okay? And my book is called Alvin's Laws of Life. This is an old picture. But
and Alvin, you take your time. We're not in any hurry. I just wanted to be respectful of your time. That's all.
Oh, I'm fine. I got nothing but time. So this is a picture of my family. This is my son when he was about your age. Now he's 35. And that's my wife, and that's me, of course. Look at my wife. Is the first thing you think of when you look at her going, wow, she's kind of pretty. Exactly. Why was I attracted to her? Because she's beautiful. And she's still beautiful, both inside and out. But what attracted her to me? I don't think it was my biceps, right? It was my energy and my love for life. And it was my friendships. And it was my family. And it's real. Now, you may not have the good fortune of having the kind of family I had, but you can change your own life by making good choices of who you spend time with, but more than anything, what you do to make your life better. Okay, success doesn't fall from the sky. We must go out and find it. And it's been hard this year. But that's my answer, is really, it's just about mindset and yes, attitude.
And I love that, how you reiterate that about keeping a positive attitude. And that's the one thing I want you students to walk away with. There's no such thing as can't, and just keeping a positive attitude about life. I think that can make a huge difference. We have a question from Agnes, and you should be able to unmute, my friend. You had a good question.
Hi, nice to meet you.
My pleasure.
Were there times when you thought you couldn't do it?
Yes, I want to reiterate and add something that I said earlier, but I want to go back and visit it again. The ability that I needed to learn to use these took a lot of effort, over and over and over and over again. And you know what that meant? That meant I learned failure isn't a bad thing. It feels like it, doesn't it, when we fail? But the reality is failure is like a test. But it's a personal test. It's not a test we take at school that we get a mark on. So we can't cheat ourselves. Does that make sense? Sometimes we'll cheat on tests. I'm just saying, some people do. But you can't cheat on your own life test because you're the only one in it, right? So you have to honor yourself. And every time you fail, you got to say, okay, what do I do to make this better? I'm not kidding. I needed help going to the washroom until they came up with pants that have elastics, right? Like gym or sweatpants or shorts that have elastics. All of my clothes, it's really hard to see. All of my clothes have elastic waistbands. My shirts are customized by my wife. She cuts off the sleeves. But when I get dressed, I do kind of like almost a yoga exercise. So my legs have to pull the pants up, and then I use the edge of a countertop, or more often when I'm in a washroom, the top of a toilet seat, or anything that I can get that elastic to pull it up off my waist to my waist. My shirts go right over my head. Was that hard? Yes, but the payoff was independence. And actually, it leads to one more thing I want to say. We must try every day to have gratitude. And I'm not trying to suggest I know what you live like where you are. Sometimes it can be really tough, but we don't get to pick the life we're given, right? I grew up in a small town in Canada. I'm talking to you in Italy. It's incredible. You're going to grow up with a different kind of attitude because of your language, because of the people you live with, because of your community, the food you eat, the music you listen to. It shapes who you become. But at the end of the day, the one thing that we all have in common that COVID has really proven is no matter where we live, we're all human. And we can learn from each other because all human beings have the same mind. And by using a human mind, we can achieve incredible things, but we have to work at it.
Wonderful, wonderful message. And we'll go with a couple more questions before we let you go. But we have a question
Sure.
from Pablo, and Pablo's in Spain, I believe. Pablo, you should be able to unmute and ask. Go ahead.
Yes, nice to meet you, Alvin. My question was, who have been the people who have supported, helped, and motivated you the most in your whole life?
Thank you, Pablo. That's a great question. Well, as you probably figured out, my parents, and if you remember, my parents were in their 50s. But what I want to also remind you of is I grew up in a small town. So I literally was not a stranger in my community. I credit my town of about 10,000 people. Maybe that's a big town, I don't know. But everybody was sort of, you ever heard the expression in English, I got your back, right? I got your back. I had people who had my back. Now, I don't want to suggest that I didn't have some people that I didn't get along with. I did. But when I started to realize who were the people that didn't like me, well, why would I want them to be a friend of mine anyway? So the second thing that happened was my community. The third thing that happened was my friends. And as you can see, it makes sense. All of the people that supported me were the people I loved in my life. But the key to all of it was not waiting for them to give me something. We must give ourselves. So I learned to, volunteer, go to charity work, help in tough communities. As I got older with my speaking, I've spoken in some of the most tough places in the world, in Mexico City, in different places that I've traveled to. I was in Uganda. I spoke to a small village there. I want to take my message to the world, but also I want to give to the world. So when you give to the world, whether it's for a cause, for the environment, for planet Earth, find something that's bigger than you, and then you'll be around people that feel the same way. People that want to make things better, people that want to change the planet. And when you get around people like that, you can't help but get caught up in the momentum to want to be a great human being.
And you, sir, are definitely a world changer. And before we let you go, Is there some type of advice you could give to the kids as they kind of go off into the world and figure out what they want to do? I don't know if you guys read all of the accomplishments that Alvin has: actor, author, broadcaster, obviously public speaker, athlete, musician. It goes, and I'm sure there's so many more things, but husband, father, just all around good guy. What kind of advice would you have for these students as they go off into the world and kind of figure out who they want to be and what they want to pursue?
Okay, so I'm going to hold up my device. You have one of these? Because I'm not sure exactly what your rules are in your family or in your school or in your town. I've got one of these, but you know one of the best things about having no arms, Mr. Krause, and everybody else? I can't carry this around, right? I can't just put it in my pocket or in the back of my pants. That means I am not a slave to my device. What's that got? Am I just being old now? No, I use it all the time. Look, there's a picture of my dog. That's Murphy, okay? I use this when I need it, but the rest of the time, I'm not focused on my phone. I'm focused on the world. I'm not visiting Italy through my phone. I'm going to go to Italy someday. You can't live your life through their device. And by the way, what's going on in here is not worth you having it right next to your bed. Waking up and the first thing you do is looking at your phone, worried if you might have missed a message. Look, you're not the king of Italy. And that I know doesn't exist, but you know what I mean? You're important. But whatever's going on in here can wait. We need to be mindful. It's a way of thinking of the world. We need to be aware of our surroundings. We can't be walking down a sidewalk looking at our phone because we're missing the world. I have become successful, Mr. Krause, because I've done it. But I'm not saying that I did it all by myself. I was, as we've suggested, had support, I've had love, but more than anything, I've appreciated every single day of my life. Do you know what I did before I got on the call this morning? Because it's kind of early here. The first thing I did was go for a walk down the back alley about 3 blocks to a park and played with my dog. Played with Murphy. We play with a tennis ball. That's how I start my day. You can't have a bad day if you're starting it with a lovely pet. And then I come home and have a coffee with my beautiful wife. I mean, we've been married for almost 30 years. Can you believe that? I can't believe it. How come? Well, because I just became my authentic self. That's what I would challenge you to do. Just be your authentic self. Don't worry if you're ugly. Don't worry if you got scars. Don't worry if you got pimples or what we call zits, or your hair's not perfect, or your body's not perfect. Don't be a Kardashian. Be authentic.